in California. My name is Sharon Butler, and I'm the 2023 President-elect of Tri-Counties Association of Realtors. We are excited to be bringing you this joint presentation with Hawaii International Real Estate Council. We have a great presentation for you, Real Estate Abroad Part 2. We are having an exciting program for you. We have a great panel of super international real estate people. Richard Silva is our real estate representative leader of Silver, Burtnick and Associates at Sotheby's International Realty Canada. On top of that, he is also designated as an ABRE Pro and Certified International Property Specialist. All these combined help him deliver an experience that goes above and beyond for his clients. As a past director at large for Canada Real Estate Association, as well as past president of Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. I'm super nervous, I don't know why. Richard is adept in the market and has a level of expertise that you'd be hard pressed to find anywhere else. Next up, we have Helen Chen Marston. Helen believes knowledge is power. She's spent a tremendous time earning her real estate designations and certifications. We will list them all in our chat box. Throughout the years, Helen has helped a ton of people buy, sell, and invest in real estate, building their wealth. Helen has been involved in organized real estate for over 10 years. She is currently serving as the chair of 2023 NAR CIPS Advisory Board and NAR Global Ambassador to China, Korea, and Taiwan. Also, we have Tina Mack. Tina has been a realtor since 1992. She is founding member of CREA Global Committee, founding president of Asian Real Estate Association of California, the first chapter outside of the United States in Vancouver in 2012. Ms. Mack has been named Inman's within the 100 most influential realtors for the past 2 years. She also has her own radio show since 2005 and has been doing global business throughout her career. Our moderator for this event is Patrick O'Neill. He has over 35 years of international real estate experience, working in 8 different countries. He currently holds Hawaii and Hong Kong property broker's license. He is the owner and president of Luxury Homes International, which ranks in the top 20 largest firms in Hawaii. He is the current president of Hawaii International Real Estate Council. Patrick, take it away.
Hey, Sharon, what a great introduction. Can't believe you're nervous and you look that great with that lay on. Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, Sharon. Yeah, what a panel we have to get today. Helen's video is not working, so we're just going to hear her voice and get all her information from her that way. I also want to say a special thank you to Crystal Bisay and Laura Halverson for coordinating this event between the Hawaii and the Tri-County Association, Realtor Associations. Great job, ladies. Without you, this wouldn't have happened. If you missed part 1, in which we profiled Japan, Korea, and China, we'll drop a link in the chat with the video link. It's worth seeing. Great information, especially about Japan and Korea. China, we're going to cover some of that today. If you're not in Hawaii and you're interested in what's happening in our market, we're happy to send you our monthly Hawaii housing report. Just drop me an email and I'll make sure we get that to you. If you have any questions today for our panelists, please drop that in the Q&A. We'll be monitoring that and we'll take the Q&A at the end. Also, a video replay will be made for all the participants today, so stand by for that. Okay, our discussion today is to better understand how real estate is conducted in Canada and in China, with the hope that we can better serve those clients when they come and buy and sell in the United States. And I just wanted to give you a couple of facts from the NAR report on foreign buyers and sellers and why we've chosen these 2 countries today. Canada is the #1 largest foreign buying group in the United States. China ranks #3. Okay, we'll give China a little, all right. #2 is Mexico, if you're interested. California is the #1 state for Chinese buyers across the country and by a very large margin, and #3 state for Canadian buyers. Hawaii ranks number 11 for Canadian buyers across the country. And in Hawaii, Canada is the second largest foreign buying group that we have, behind Japan, number 1, and China has slipped to number 6 post-pandemic. If you'd like the full NAR report, you can go to their website, or again, shoot me an email, make sure we get that to you. One program note, as we talk about China today, we're really going to be talking about Beijing specific. As many of you know, a lot of differences throughout the provinces and the different cities. Okay, let's get on with the show. Let's start with you, Tina. Tina, can you give us just a brief update? What's happening in the market in Vancouver?
Well, we expect it to be slower, but it is not quite. The market, because of the interest rates keep on hiking up, as we know, and we're expecting another, or hopefully final hike in September. We don't know yet, okay? Some say no and some say yes. So, well, let's say that we expect it's gonna hike up again in September. So we expect the market to slow down. It has been for the luxury market, I have to say. So anything that is, 4 million and up and things like that, it does take, longer time to sell. Having said that, we don't have enough inventory, regardless it's entry level or the luxury level properties. The most demanding one is below 1 million, and I'm sure that Toronto probably is the same. And for any things that is, now we're all talking about Canadian dollars right now, so it's 30%, off for you guys, So when it comes to anything that is under 1 million, multiple offer is still very much in place. We recently have heard, condos, and I experienced it with my own buyers, that is, like 500,000 something, and then end up sold, as high as $90,000 over asking, that kind of stuff. So
it sounds like it's pretty strong still, pretty strong
for
right
low
now.
end, for entry level.
For lower end, entry level. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit more about supply and demand later.
Sure.
And then Helen, let's shoot over to you. Can you briefly give us an idea what's happening market-wise, China and then specifically Beijing?
In China, the current market status is not very positive, and the post-pandemic still impact on the real estate market. And then the layer 1, we always say that layer 1 cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, are much better than the layer 2 or even layer 3 and 4 cities. So currently now, there are a lot of inventories, and then people reluctant to buy at this moment. And one is because uncertainty, and people are different thinking over there or here in America. I remember during the pandemic times in United States, people actually used money to put in the real estate to hold the value. But in China, they feel that uncertainty about what's going on. So they want to hold the money in hand. And then also the support, the financial support policy from government is dropping. And then is trying to lift up a little bit, but not back to 2019.
Okay, and Helen, are you seeing prices depreciate? Are they still going up, down, sideways? Oh, Helen, did we lose you there? Okay, well, we'll move on. Richard, let's go to you and let's talk about Toronto. If you can kind of give us a brief understanding of what's happening in the marketplace there.
Yeah, the market, as Tina said, it is slower. However, it's still fairly strong, surprisingly enough. Not as strong as it was just during the COVID, where everybody was buying and they were trying to get new and bigger houses, houses that you felt more comfortable if you had to stay in them for 3 or 4 months without going out. They all wanted more bedrooms, more studies, more, offices for him and her. But we still have a very strong market. With the basic problem is that in Canada, like the United States, we're basically underhoused. We just do not have enough housing available. Right now, we have a huge boom in condominiums in Toronto. You've got about 270 cranes in the air in Toronto right now, which is higher than, I think, New York, San Francisco, and Chicago. And we're actually, most of the cranes are coming from the US because we were craned out.
How
But there's,
about that?
there's
So
a
are you
lot
seeing
of,
are you seeing prices heading up then with the supply demand imbalance?
yeah, marginally they are still heading up. Yeah. And it really depends on the area, it depends on location. It's all still,
Sure.
you know, as much as we talk about it, we're still very location based.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for that. Helen, are you with us?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry,
all
my
right.
internet
That's
just
okay.
not very
That's all right.
stable.
Okay, we're going to talk now about buying in China and Canada. And Helen, we're going to start with you. What is the profile of the majority of foreigners that you see purchasing in the first tier cities in China?
In China right now, there is a policy for the foreigner to buy property. You have to have 1 year work visa in order to buy. And at this moment, only primary residential is allowed.
I see, but you still need to have residency or at least a 1 year work
Yes.
visa to be
Yes.
allowed to purchase anything.
Right.
Okay. Okay, got it. And then Tina, for you in Vancouver, what is the profile of the majority of foreign buyers that you've seen purchase there?
Well, let's put it this way, due to our wonderful government's ban, foreign buyers buying in Canada, residential, okay, only until end of 2025. My personal opinions, this is political play, but nothing we can do. Everything, in the world right now is political play. And however, because our immigration door is wide open, and so Canada is not short of foreign monies coming in. And for those who wants to come to Vancouver and Toronto, they know, Vancouver is pretty much the most expensive city in the country. And then Toronto, because Toronto is so much bigger than us. So you have choices.
So Tina, I think at least the profile used to be, it was Hong Kong Chinese and then other Chinese following. Would you say that's still the profile for Vancouver purchases?
Well, you know what?
For foreign.
Again, yes, again, it's politics now, because literally a week and a half ago, our, Prime Minister has a new policy out for the Hong Kong immigrants. That means that, their education levels or the English level does not need to be as high. And as long as they have the working visa, they can come here and get our PR or citizenship much faster and in much shorter time. And so, this is all politically play. Immigrants wise, always is Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China. They're still, pretty much the same.
Sure. Okay. And then Richard, let's shoot over to you in Toronto. And do you want to add anything to the current moratorium?
You know what? I do, because when I first got into business, I have to tell you, it's like 44 years ago. A lot of my clients were Hong Kong Chinese who were coming to Canada to start businesses, and they were concerned about Hong Kong and what would happen there, or they were Taiwanese. And then when things seemed to settle in Hong Kong after the takeover, they moved back to Hong Kong. So we've got a lot. We probably have 300,000 Canadian citizens who are actually living in Hong Kong. So them coming back is also going to really alter the market. And there's a lot of, I've been showing people from Taiwan properties in Canada because they're just concerned about moving their money and what will happen if something erupts between China and Taiwan.
Yes.
So we're seeing some of that.
And Richard, prior to the moratorium, were there any restrictions on foreign ownership?
There was a tax. There was a tax, not as high as it was in Vancouver, but it has increased. But there was a tax. But like a lot of, all of our buyers are very inventive, and there were ways around the tax. So now it's now that it's a moratorium on actually buying, it's different. It's also the difference with between Canada and between Toronto and Vancouver is we have a little bit more of a melting pot. We have a lot of buyers coming from the Western countries as well, from Europe, from Afghanistan. And one of the things that the government has brought in is there's sort of like this dichotomy. Here they want up to 1 million immigration, but on the other hand, they won't let the immigrants buy. So it's a bit of a quandary that they're in. And I think they're going to have to fix that. They really are.
Okay. All right. Well, Helen, let's shoot back to you. Let's talk about the buying process in Beijing. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You can kind of put these all together. Are buyers agents used by buyers? And then how are the commissions structured? Who pays typically? What are the commission structures, Helen?
Well, over there in China, it's very mess. The purchase procedures. There is no designated buyer agent for stay, and then usually the commission paid by buyer. Guess no matter believe or not, all the commissions paid by buyer, including seller part of the tax. So buyer agent is very critical in China. You have to work hard, but that it doesn't secure your commission.
Yes, and then what are the typical commission percentages that you see?
Usually from 1.5 to 2.5 total.
Okay, and then the agents, the buyer agent that's actually showing the property, are they generally salary based, or are they getting a percentage of the commission?
They have a salary like a base, and then they have some commission sharing with the brokers. And then some of the agents, they even just get a few $100s for a transaction.
Right. Okay. And then Tina, let's jump over to you in Vancouver. Buyers, I'm assuming, use buyers agents, and what do the commissions look like? What are the percentages? Who pays?
Okay, I think that our commission is similar to China. We are the worst in North America. And we basically, to make it easier for everybody, it's pretty much like 3% across the board. Okay, so 3% to pay for both parties, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's pretty much similar to China, unfortunately. And even though our price point can be high, but still, when it comes to buying process or buyer's agents, I try to use it, and I would like to use it, but it's not popular in Vancouver at all. Probably Toronto is better than us, but we are not popular because we have too many Asian here, and then nobody wants to do that kind of stuff. So that's basically the overall things.
Okay, understand.
In Ontario, there's a stipulation that before you actually write the offer, that you have to have a buyer representation agreement signed. So that, and they ask you to do it as soon as possible. Most people don't, but they do it just before the offer, but it does have to be signed before the offer. And commission wise, I mean, I can't get into anything else other than what I charge, and that is in the 5% range. What other agents are charging, I'm not at liberty to say, and I won't get into that discussion, but I can tell you that with that, I do the staging, I do decluttering if needed, I do great
and right now we're talking about buying. So if you're representing a buyer, what does the buyer's agent be paid? And then who's paying that commission?
On our listings, we offered a 2.5% and for the buyer agent, and that is paid by the seller.
I understand. Okay, and is that typical for your area? Is it sort of typical? Okay. All right.
Yeah, we have competition bureau issues in Canada, and I can't really say what it is.
I understand. Totally understand. I understand. Yes. Okay.
That's one of those NAR Korea rules, right?
Understood. And then real estate agents, are they just simply receiving a percentage of the commission, or are they salary based?
No, most of the companies that I know of are strictly commission, and then that's divided up with the company or whatever split you're on.
Good. Okay. All right. Helen, let's come back to you. In Beijing, is there anything equivalent to a centralized MLS system where agents can go and see all the data?
No. even the technology is there, they can do everything, but just have any agreement among all the agents or brokers. So many people, many companies tried, they come to US for the conventions and learn about MLS, but just it's not a reality at this moment.
Right.
Still.
So if you're a buyer, you need to be going and talking to multiple companies, multiple agents to access all the properties, correct?
Yes. Each company, they have their own website to put the inventories there. So that's why the one side exclusive representative agreement is not existed over there.
Yes, understood. And then Tina, how about you? Centralized MLS system in Vancouver?
Yeah, we have it, the whole country. We have a realtor.ca. So that website you can see every single province's cities listings, but not the sold listings. So it's different, very different from the US MLS. Us is realtor.ca, you can see everything.
I see. And Richard, I'm assuming you use the same system. Is the information also available online through other systems like we have in the US? Yes, or it's populated through the MLS systems?
Yeah, one of the things that Canada did, I think, which is very smart, is the Canadian Real Estate Association actually, in the States, NAR moved realtor.ca to a for-profit. In Canada, they haven't. They've kept the realtor.ca. Realtor.com for a profit. In Canada, they kept realtor.ca. They own it. And so we, as part of our membership fees, get basically full access for probably around $200 a year to a website that doesn't have any advertising on it. And basically people can go to sign up, they can get the information. And we are moving. We've got 74 boards across Canada right now, and some of them are starting to release the sold price after closing.
Okay, and this is an important point I just want to emphasize for people who are listening to this call in California and Hawaii. When you're working with clients from countries where they don't have a centralized MLS system, they assume they need to go and find 5 or 6 buyers agents. So it's something that you need to explain, right, when you first come in.
Listen, the funny thing is our phone will ring at the office and the secretary will call and she says, this person is calling 5 different agents. I think they must be a flake. And I'm going, no. They're just used to another system where they have to call separately, but they don't understand MLS. So you have to guide them on MLS.
Yes. I think North America is the only place that has the MLS system. So any other part of the other side of the world, not just China, they're all open listings.
And there are a few cities in the US that also don't do centralized MLS, as you guys
New York.
New York.
Manhattan.
Yes.
Manhattan.
Good old Manhattan. I don't know how they did that.
It.
Okay, let's move on. Helen, you're working with the buyer, or you're not working with them, but they're working with someone. Who now writes the offer to purchase? And what's the process at that point? They found a property they want to buy. Who writes that offer?
Well, the real estate company have their forms. And then sometimes, if buyer through they're individually looking for someone is selling and they bypass the real estate company, but they usually find a person who know or in this industry, that person will help them and they will pay just like $1,000 RMB for the help. But if you go through the real estate company, they have their form.
Understood. And then, Helen, once an offer is accepted, escrow companies use or attorneys use, and who holds the deposit monies?
Usually there's no escrow company there and no title company. And then so the deposit either in the broker company, or sometimes they have like government secured agency to hold that deposit.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And then one last question, Helen, is title insurance available or used by anyone?
No, there's no such thing over there. So there's no title insurance. And then, so that's why now there are so many troubles, issues after closing, found out the title issues. Sometimes, the property was actually.
Oh, we think we lost you there for a sec. Okay, Tina, let's go to you. Let's start with buyer has found a property. Who writes the offer to purchase and what's the process?
My assistant.
Good answer. Are you using standard forms that are prepared by
Yes,
the?
yes.
the
We do
Realtors
have a standard
Association?
forms, and then we have, obviously we customize it depending on the
Mhm.
situations, deficiency, like clauses and all that kind of stuff. But we do have a template that we cannot alter the fine print. And so that's it's very simple in a way, but obviously everybody, like basic mortgage, inspections, and the differences between Vancouver and Toronto is when you buy the condo, Vancouver side is that the buyer has to read all their HOA minutes, okay, monthly minutes, okay, we call it strata minutes. So it's same as HOA. So this terminology things, again, if you work with Canadians, then if you say HOA, then they might not understand. We use the word strata, at least from
Strata.
Vancouver side, okay?
Yes.
So us is that we have to, the buyer has to read it. We as an agent, we're not supposed to read it for them. However, if we work with ESL, English as second language, like from China or Hong Kong, or the English is not very good, they often, the buyer rely on us to read it for them, which I always say, I can help you, but I cannot read it for you because something important to me might not be to you, and vice versa. So if you really want to, then get a lawyer to do it.
Yeah, perfect advice. And then once an offer is accepted, are you using escrow companies or attorneys, and who holds the deposit monies?
We don't do escrow, and this is one thing that I really enjoy the Canadian way to do business. Because when you don't have escrow, you don't know, okay, is the deal going to close today or tomorrow, or is it going to happen? Because we only have a contingency, we call it subject removal and conditions until certain days. Usually it's like 10 business days in Vancouver. And once you remove all the contingency, then it's a firm and binding contract. We do attorney, and then so that as a realtors, you're going to get paid for sure. And if they're trying to pull, either the seller or the buyer, if they wish to pull, then money will be in, for arbitrators to decide where to go. And we, the buyer's company, the buyer's agent's company, will be holding the deposit. We call deposit, not earnest money, and then and a stakeholder.
Okay, and then finally, title insurance available or used
Title,
in Vancouver?
yeah. Title insurance was not a thing at all, even though it has it has been around. But I have to say that since the beginning of the year, there's a lot of scams, between Toronto and Vancouver. We have a lot of scams, and it's like triple, quadruple up. So right now, title insurance becomes, a big thing. And a lot of the banks we recommend the buyers to buy title insurance.
Sure. Okay. All right. And then Richard, so let's shoot over to you now. Kind of same line of question. So buyer finds property. Who writes the offer? What's the process? Are you using escrow companies? Attorneys?
I write the offer. I write the offer for my clients. My assistant doesn't. I'd rather just do it one time and do it the way I want it. So I'm control freak.
Are you using standard forms from the
standard
Realtors
forms?
Association?
Yeah, just so you understand, every province has its own regulator, and then the regulator looks after things like, and the provincial organization usually looks after things like the standard forms. So as you go across Canada, you're going to have 74 different types of standard forms, but a lot of them are quite similar. So in Ontario, they have the Ontario Real Estate Association standard forms.
Understood. Okay, and once this is accepted, are you using escrow companies, attorneys,
lawyers?
And who holds the deposit? Okay.
Lawyers, and the deposit is held by the listing agency, unless it's stipulated otherwise in the contract. But more often than not, it's during the listing company that holds it.
Yeah, so that is definitely difference, between the two province.
Yeah.
Because
And
we
then-
held it as the buyer's agents, agents company. Yours is listing
Oh,
agents
really?
company.
Listing
Yeah.
agent company, yeah. And we've been using title insurance for a good 10, 15 years now. It's almost every single deal that I've done. I know at the end of the day, it's under title insurance.
Good. Okay. And then this is another thing I just want to point out to people who are listening to this in California and Hawaii. These are nuances that your clients don't know when they come under doing a transaction that you really need to explain. Title insurance is not available throughout most of the world. So this is just another one of those topics. Okay, we're going to wrap up on this and talk a little bit about how foreigners now buying in your areas generally hold title. So Helen, I'm going to come back to you. Foreigner purchasing in Beijing, how are they generally holding title? In their own name, in some entity? Okay, we'll move on to Tina. Tina, how about you? Generally, how would you recommend a foreigner purchasing in Vancouver to hold title?
Yes, in the past, a lot of the time, people, especially from Asia, they like to use companies' names to hold the property, but no longer advised by the, like CPA, because they don't think that is there's so many layers of taxation, and that is not necessarily good if you hold the property using a company's name. So, generally, they would prefer us to use the personal name.
Okay, all right. And then Richard, how about for you? Anything to add to that?
The big thing is in Canada that your principal resident is not taxable when you sell it. There's no capital gains on it. You buy it for $1 million, you sell it for 10 million, no capital gains whatsoever.
We like to hear that.
However, if it's bought in a company name and there is a capital gain, you're going to pay on that. So everybody says buy it in your own name, buy it in your principal name. However, when somebody comes to the US, and we'll talk about that, it is different.
Yes. Yeah, very different. Okay, let's shoot over to selling in your areas. So Richard, let's start with you. Generally, are you doing exclusive listings, non-exclusive listings? And I know you don't want to answer this.
No. Well, Canada's on January the 1st, we're about to introduce the same decree that you've had in the US about exclusive listings, that within 3 days of any sort of marketing, you have to basically put it on MLS. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't.
But you're generally using exclusive listings, not a non-exclusive.
I use exclusive listings to get the property prepared, but when it comes to the market, I put it on MLS almost all the time. I've just found, unless the seller has an issue for not having their name out there, I just find it gets some more visibility, and that's my job.
Okay. All right, and Tina, how about coming to you? Exclusive listings, non-exclusive listings.
I guess,
is the typical commission
yeah,
structure?
I guess the exclusive listing, I think all of us have exclusive listing. It's like a pocket listing, the way that the US is using the terminology, because we all have our exclusive listing. But the same as what Richard was saying is that we have 3 business days to market the property on MLS, whether you like it or not, whereas in US it's 24 hours. And so there's a difference between the two countries. But other than that, same thing.
Okay, and Helen, are you back with us?
Yes, all right. Let's answer the previous questions that, how the foreigners who hold basically is primary residence.
Okay,
not
all right.
yeah.
Okay, and Helen, listing type, exclusive
There's
listings?
No exclusive listing at all in China. And even the seller refused to sign the exclusive, one listing, one side at all. Because they remember there's no MLS system over there. So they will rather to have a, 3, 4,
Open.
maybe 10 of them to help have the words out to sell.
Yeah.
So no exclusive at all.
Yeah, and another point for people who are listening right now, most countries are non-exclusive listings. So if you're a seller, you do list with 5, 6 people. So know that when you're dealing with foreign sellers in the US. Okay, let's move on to disclosure requirements. And Helen, we'll stay with you. in Beijing? Buyer beware or full disclosure requirements?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No disclosure forever. And then,
Okay.
I just heard something this time when I visited the association in China. They kind of like an AR type thing in China. And then their chair even just feel frustrated. I heard a case that because there's no law, no anything, no really regulated procedures. So basically, buyer agent, seller agent, they come together, try to get a deal done. And then, so basically, none of them thinking their clients at the best interest. So they will two together, try everything to make the deal done, and then they get their commission.
Yep.
But if in case the deal not closed, they have to return their commission. But sometimes the agent got the commission and disappeared. And then if that case happened, the company have to pay the penalty.
Yes, yes. The contract is a loose framework for future negotiations. So Tina, let's go to you. Disclosure requirements, buyer beware, full disclosure in your area, Vancouver.
Absolutely, and I think BC is is the only province in the country that only, like they want the buyers has their own representation and seller has their own representation. The dual agency is, I won't use the word not allowed, but is absolutely not encouraged. And then if you have to do the dual agency thing, which means that your buyers happens to be your past clients and your seller is also your past clients, then there's a lot of documentations that you have, a lot of forms. And then if it's someone that a buyer call your listing and say that, okay, Tina, I only want you to write it for me for whatever reasons, like then we'll put down it's like unrepresented, relationship.
Okay.
And so Richard, yeah, that's what it is.
In Toronto, from a seller's perspective,
right.
Full disclosure required?
I just say disclose. Everything in writing as much as possible. I've been luckily 44 years in the business. I haven't been sued once, and I've
congratulations. Let's keep it that way.
Let's just keep it that way. Disclose.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. And then Richard, we'll stay with you for a minute. So you're probably familiar with FERPTA in the U.S. and then California, Hawaii also have withholding. Are there withholding taxes or something similar in Toronto?
Yeah. For buyers across Canada, there's a 25% minimal holding tax. And I think what happens is at a later point, the seller will pay will do their taxes, and there may be money coming back to them at that point. There is a withholding tax.
Okay. And now prior to the moratorium, are there different tax structures for foreign owners in Toronto as opposed to someone who lives there, other than owner occupant? But two people, let's say, buying investment property, one is a Canadian citizen, one is not. Any differences in the tax structure?
Well, here's the scoop in Toronto. It's a little bit disturbing, and it's just recently come up. There's what we call now a flipping tax. In other words, if you buy a property and you want to flip it within the first year after closing, and that's happening with a lot of the condominiums, there is a tax to be paid 1 year from the actual closing if you flip it. There's also a vacant home tax. So if you are a snowbird, like a lot of us are, and we spend part of the time in Mexico and part of the time in Hawaii or part of the time, and then we go up to our cottage in the summer or a lake house, and your house sits basically empty for 4 months, you have to pay a tax on the other 8 months that the house is empty. So, and that's really trying to stem this problem of being underhoused.
Understood. And then Tina, in your area, any sort of withholding?
Well, withholding percentage is the same. Excuse me, that's across the country. But then the thing is, when it comes to what Richard said about the all kinds of taxes, each municipality has different. The federal one, right now we have this underused taxation things. So that covers the whole country. If you underused, then it will be like 1%. Now, I don't want to get into the details because it's just too much to explain. And then for the municipality, like local wise, like so I shouldn't say municipality, it's provincial. So it's like the state, okay? So then we have what we call a speculations and vacancy tax. So, you could be a PR, or you could be a citizen. But if your household income more than 50% that is made in US, okay, and then even though I'm Canadian, okay, if for whatever reason my job, I get paid by US dollar, and more than 51% that is from US, so I have to file US taxations. So then in this case, I have, I have to have some kinds of what they call as a speculation tax, because in Vancouver we have a lot.
Let's hold off on that, but thank you. That'll get deep in the weeds if we head in there. So Helen, let me ask you, Helen. Right now, foreigners selling their property in Beijing subject to withholding, and are the taxes different for foreigners versus citizens?
Well, I'm not aware withholding. Usually all the taxes done by the deal close.
Okay.
And
all right.
yeah, the foreigner have different rate. I'm not sure the current rate though. I will find out.
That's all right. Okay. Now we're going to move on to clients from your areas buying in the United States. And I want to point out that we have a very unique panel because they're familiar with the international, also familiar with the US. So it's really great to have this. Tina, let's start with you. From a historical perspective, I think you mentioned this earlier, where is the Canadian dollar against the US dollar in the exchange rate?
About 30% right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And Helen, how about the renminbi to US?
Around 7%.
7% weaker than the dollar?
Well, it's $7 RMB equals to $1 US.
Okay, and how does that look from a historical perspective?
I think that's pretty normal. I remember when I
think we lost you there again. Okay, let's move on to Richard. Right now, are there any restrictions for Canadians when they are wiring funds into the United States from the Canada side?
No.
Okay.
No, not necessarily. I think none at all.
Okay. All right. And Helen, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, that's all right. Right now, what are the restrictions from the China side of someone who wants to wire funds into the US?
Well, the limit always there from $50,000 per person per year, and then sometimes it dropped to 30,000, per year per person. But even there is limited there, still it's very hard even to get out for 10,000 or US dollars here. You have to have very specific reason, not for example, you have student in a college, you need send them the living cost and the tuitions. That's one of the reasons you can have the RMB transfer to US dollar and but it's overall it's very hard to get money out.
Understood. Okay. So Tina, let's shoot over to you. For someone from Vancouver and they are going to buy in the United States, what are some of the big issues or changes in practice that you need to explain to them?
Well, I think that we need, the Americans agents needs to have a team. It's all about taxations, and the title insurance and the legal things, because we're so used to attorney. You have escrow and things like that. But because it's all depend on whether they buy in Hawaii, probably most people they buy it as lifestyle, and then Airbnb, like investment and things like that, right? And snowbird too. But I think that the lifestyles, whether they're buying as an investment or as their second home and things like that, that will be something the local agent needs to explain, is the taxation part. As much as everybody sometimes think that the IRS is very complicated, I think that the Vancouver, the British Columbia one is probably just as complicated at the moment. So CPA, that's what you need to be on your team.
Okay, and Richard, what would you say you need to really make the buyers aware?
You really have to have a specialist who can help your client with cross-border purchases, because it's also in Canada we don't really have inheritance to deal with our properties, but in the United States you do. So a lot of Canadians buying in the States will create an LLC for that property, and they'll buy it in the name of the LLC. I'm used to buying something in my own name. I couldn't do it if I was going to the States because I would have to worry about how I was going to deal with the inheritance for my followers. So it's just a matter of making sure that your clients have the best information and it has to be a specialist.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the difference between selling a house and a condo. Send them to a condo lawyer who understands condominiums. Sell them to a cross-border lawyer or accountant who understands that cross-border shopping.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah,
And then Helen,
cross-border
Yeah.
accountant is so important.
Oh, important.
very important.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Helen, let's go to you. What are some of the big issues or practices that you need to explain to buyers that are coming from China when they're purchasing in the US?
Well, number one, I think you have to teach them how to respect the contract, because no such thing in China. You can negotiate all the way to the end of the closing, but in United States, we have the law, that is legal binding contract, and then if you don't really understand, you might end it up to lose your deposit. So the first thing that the agent, I suggest agent to do the first-time buyer consultation. That's very important. Let them know what the process of the real estate transaction in the United States. And the contract is contract. You have to respect that. And number two, that how to hold the title of the property. That's very important, because a lot of Chinese like to put their children on title, and then sometimes you end up with quite problems. And some, I have the buyer put their infant in the title, and then that's caused big problem too. So all these are major things that you have to let them know, and also let them understand if they still foreigner when they sell the property, you have the withholding taxes. If they don't know, the rumor says, oh, the United government will take a chunk of your money out. This, you just need to let them know what exactly the process is.
Yes. Okay, good. I think all of you kind of touch on. Yes, Tina, do you want to add something?
Oh,
I think you're muted.
Tina, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So maybe we can get into a discussion a little bit later on if you wish. If anybody wants to ask, is that the United States, the Americans agents should learn about the CRS. The conversation that I had with you, Patrick, and when we were talking, is common reporting standard. We can get into that later on, because that is a very good advantage for foreigners to buy in US.
Yeah. Okay.
Common reporting standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was also smiling. I was also smiling at what Helen said, because for years and years and years, when I've dealt with a non-Asian seller and an Asian buyer, I said, we have to negotiate the price 3 times. We have to negotiate the price when the offer comes in. We have to renegotiate the price with the removal of conditions or contingencies. And before closing, we're going to have to negotiate the price again. So whatever you do, just keep that in mind, because
only 2 here. 2 here.
Only 2.
2 times here.
But it's true.
Helen's saying only 3 times. You're doing a good job. Hey, let's just talk briefly. Helen, if a client needs to have documents notarized in Beijing, can you describe the process they need to go through?
Right. You can go to the consulate, the American consulate in China, to do all the notarized the important real estate, like power attorney. Most of them are power attorneys.
Yes. Okay. And then Richard, how about in your area? If someone is purchasing or selling in the US, need notarized documents, how does that take place?
You know what? These days, everybody seems to be using DocuSign. And since COVID, a lot of the lawyers have been upping their DocuSign standards. They're using special access. And I mean, COVID was terrible, but that's the only good thing that came out of it, is DocuSign is a lot more, lawyer friendly these days. So we are seeing more of that.
Okay. And Tina, coming to you. So this is something that needs to be notarized for a U.S. transaction. What's the process for Canadian?
It will be very much similar to Richard, because a lot of the lawyer these days, not these days, but often they have connections in U.S. So, all the electronic one, it can be done. I won't say that the transaction is the important part, because electronic procedures can be done, but it's about mortgage. Like whether the banks in US require the Canadian be there the first time, at least to let them see that, okay, they're dealing with the real person. Because in Canada, in Vancouver, actually, in Vancouver, is that the banks will prefer to see face to face the buyers before they approve their mortgage.
Yep,
Some
understood.
wants them to be in town, some may not. So I don't know if US is the same situation.
Okay, and Helen, let's come back to you, and we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. What are some of the social customs or etiquette that agents in the U.S. need to be aware of when they're dealing with someone from China?
Okay, the clients from China, usually they really short of trust, because in China, that's the way. So it's not because their personality, sometimes because of situation they experienced. So they have no trust over real estate agent. So number one, you have to win their trust. And then that costs, your professionalism. When you do the buyer consultation or seller even consultations, you tell your value proposition, and then lay your professional jobs down the line, and let them understand what you do. It's not like just, show homes and then done, and then that commission. So all the transactions, anything could happen. It's really depending on your professionalism, your knowledge, your experience, your abilities, and to make sure the transaction actually open and close. So you have your value with your client, so they can trust you, and then they rely on you.
All right, and Richard, over to you. Social customs or etiquette that you'd suggest for people dealing with people from Toronto or Canada?
I'm always very careful. I'm a CIPS, and I think some of us are CIPSs, and we've all learned, to either how to kiss, bow, or shake hands. And I think every country has its own, different customs that are important. I think that's probably one of our should be probably one of our Bibles, kiss, bow, or shake hands. But there are things that I'm very careful with my clients, no matter where they come from.
Was there anything you'd say to a U.S. agent? Hey, if someone's coming from Toronto, this is our social customs or etiquette.
Oh, I'll tell you one thing. I always tell my friends who are from the U.S. who come and they speak, or I say, slow down, relax. Canadians are a little bit calmer. They will, if an American spills a hot cup of coffee in their lap, a Canadian will say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Sorry is one of the most popular words you'll hear in Canada. They just assume we assume it's our fault. But other than that,
that's a great tip.
Yeah, they're slower. You have to. It's not they just don't get jazzed up. I mean,
Canadians are
guys,
nicer people. We will all have to admit that. Tina, how about you? Any tips? Any tips for U.S. agents dealing with people from Vancouver?
I mean, if we just say that slower, then if you're dealing with people from Vancouver, it's even slower.
Yeah, exactly.
Slower than Toronto, right? So
unless there are
I think
Hong Kong Chinese in Vancouver, then you better speed it up.
Yeah, that's the part, because when I go to New York, people thought that I'm a New Yorker. So all I'm saying to you is I always have one thing, like how we behave has everything to do with how we're being brought up. So it doesn't matter where we're going, color of the skin or culture and things like that. Of course, there's cultural differences, but how we behave has everything to do with how we've been brought up. And we don't assume they know, but we need to take care of our clients, especially from other country, as completely like a baby, blank piece of paper. You just educate them.
Advice. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're running a little long, but we're going to keep going. If the panel is okay,
sure.
We'll just maybe another 10 minutes or so and do a little bit of Q&A. There was a question about references for cross-border CPAs, and I think let's not talk about that here, but we can drop something in the chat, or whoever asked that, if you want to email any of the panelists of which one you're looking for, which country, and we'd be sure to get that to you. Helen, let me go to you. How do you respond to people who request the documents to be translated? Oh, Helen, yep. Okay.
Oh.
Tina, we'll scoot
Sorry,
over to you. Oh, yeah.
I missed the question.
For someone who's purchasing in the US from China and they say, oh, I need all these documents translated, I don't understand. How do you respond to that?
Well, we are not legally to translate, but verbally we can do the translations. And sometimes they prefer the agent who can speak their language, so they can explain the clauses and then, all the language documents to them.
Okay.
But we don't provide like a legal translation in writing at this
Yes.
moment.
Tina, how about you? How do you respond to that request?
My office in the past, they did do a template of translated contracts, but we always at the end would say that, okay, this is just for reference, this is not legal documents. And even though I speak the language, and even after I explain to them, they will forget. So
Yes.
right now what I do, instead of doing that, I video my like if there's 10 pages of contract, I have 10 videos on each page, because right now video is the best. They can watch my video 10 million times without me being there. So I will do that in the language so that they will understand what they're signing.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, and then Richard, how about you? How do you deal with the request for documents to be translated?
Well, first of all, I think even if you're an English speaker and you're looking at an English contract, there's something called legalese, and I think that needs to be defined, because sometimes they're unreadable. They make sense to a lawyer, but they don't make sense to us. But above and beyond that, I just bought in Mexico about 1.5 years ago, and my contract was totally in Spanish, and I just cut and paste in Google Translate and read I mean, these days there is so much happening when it comes to translation that you can get a lot of, there are those sources.
Yes. Now, for our luxury homes agents, we do a lot of international. We do not translate anything. For translated, we send them to attorneys or some professional translators.
Oh, for
and
sure.
We also have Japanese, Chinese, and Korean translated purchase contracts, but again, just sort of for a quick reference. So anyway, thank you on that. But if you're watching agents, go translating.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I did that for myself as a buyer. I did not do that as an agent.
Yeah.
Well, I like I said, when I use the video things and it makes, I just recently finished a deal with a millennial, 30 years old, Chinese mainlander, but perfect English because educated in Canada. But when I explained, like Richard said, like even if we, like you, not we, like you speak English, English is your first language, it's difficult. But video, it makes it life much easier and faster.
Yeah.
Years ago, our board took all of the forms that would be involved in an agreement of purchase and sale and everything, and they did all the forms in plain language. And that was one of the best things we ever did as a board, and we give that to everybody.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think we have something similar for definitions. Helen, let me come back to you. Can you discuss how interior square footage is calculated in Beijing?
Well, they called a square meter.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's say with a condo, what exactly is being measured?
Well, okay, they calculate everything like construction square footage.
Yep. And a portion of the common areas?
Yes.
Yeah, very different. Tina, how about in your area? How is square footage calculated for interior?
Canada is very, like it's very open, but I find it's like if you have clients from Asia or the other side of the world, okay, you have to understand how they do it. For example, people from Hong Kong, they will count the common area where the elevator is, the parking stall, all that kind of stuff. But in Vancouver right now, we have 3 types of square footage, which drives me crazy. One I prefer to use is the strata plan. I don't know if it is called HOA plan or whatever, strata plan, which is the size that the government get, and they charge your property tax based on the strata plan. And this is what I prefer to use. And because they charge the strata fee, HOA fee, and then the property tax based on that. There's another one is that we hire a third party to do the measurement. And that often is a little bit bigger. Okay, so from the seller's point of view, of course, they want to see bigger than smaller. The third one is we call it like BC assessment, which is like a computer generated square footage for the property. In my, like it's not my opinions, but even my manager also said it is not accurate. So for the house, I will base on the third party measurement, but for the condo, I will base on the strata plan.
Okay, got it. All right. And then Richard, how about you? How was interior square
Yeah,
footage
somewhat
calculated?
similar, except in Toronto and probably from what I understand in Vancouver as well. With the condominiums, you go into the demising wall as well. In other words, so you can add another 3 or 4 inches to each measurement because you're actually going through the wall to the actual owned space. So there's the
Yeah.
actual owned space, and then there's the livable space, and those are usually 2 different things. But I think as
Okay.
long as you stipulate which one you're looking at, that's the key. Whether it's measured interior space, and I'm not going into the demising wall, I'm not going up to the windows, etc. But that's the big difference: live space
Okay.
and measured space.
Yeah. Do you want to add something, Tina?
Yeah, I mean, like the obviously in I believe Toronto is the same. It's just that the balcony we don't count in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, but sometimes, like right now, this is what I noticed is that some developer in Vancouver, when they bring their project to China or other places to market, because their market is so used to adding the balcony and other things on top of it, and makes the square footage, price per square footage or price per square meter cheaper, but it's not true. So that's the thing that like as an American agent, if you know different like customs and cultures, then it makes it easier to break the ice.
Yes. Okay, understood. Okay, and then one more question. Helen, will come back to you. Are there any COVID era restrictions still taking place in China?
Well, actually,
Out there. Tina, let's shoot over to you. Any COVID restriction, travel restrictions, anything that are still in place?
within 24 hours. I'm sorry. Are you?
Helen, you're kind of
Okay.
cutting in and out. So we're gonna go over to. We'll go.
So you
On
do
page.
not need to take any really the serious test, but you need to report to the customs. So you need to have a QR code, then through your WeChat or a different app, and then you with that QR code to pass the custom, because that's by machine. If you don't have that QR code, you cannot come in.
Okay, Tina, how about in Vancouver? Any COVID area restrictions left?
Nope.
No. Richard, anything up for you?
No,
Okay.
nothing. It would be federal, and that's not.
Okay. Okay, great. And then I guess just one last thing, and this has been touched on as we've talked about all this. Richard, start with you. Besides real estate expertise, what other services are the foreign clientele seeking?
Oh my God, they're also looking for help with access to doctors and lawyers and anything to do with schooling, especially Toronto is very, very big as far as education is concerned. So many of the big schools in Canada are located in Toronto. So that's the big thing. And that's where a lot of our foreign buyers are coming for. They're coming for the education that they'll get at the Canadian schools, whether it's medical.
Tina, you want to add anything? What other services?
Pretty much similar to I mean, I would say this the same as Richard. The only things what I discover right now is because we do have a lot of second generation millennial buyers from either India like China and all that, and they to them as we probably know, the younger generation, a lot of them, they prefer to have pets over children. So the school district might not be a huge things to them, and they don't think about that. And but as an agent, then we will educate them and say, hey, maybe you need to consider when you sell. It's not that so much just yourself when you buy, but it's when you sell, you might sell to somebody who wants to put the children's there, and so school is important. So it all depends on the buyer, the age group, and what they care and what they don't care. And I'm dealing with one that is they own property in San Diego and they now wants to buy in Vancouver. that kind of stuff. So, we need to have two countries' knowledge in order to advise them.
Okay.
Patrick.
Richard, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that's different from Canada and the US when it comes to education is if a foreign student comes to Canada to be educated, they have an automatic 3-year work visa, which they don't have, I think, in the States. They would have to apply and do everything. But in Canada, once you're there and you've done your studies and you've graduated, you can have actually 3 years. And during that time, it's fairly easy to become a permanent resident and move on from there if that's the intention.
Yeah. Tina, you want to add something?
Yes, and also if it is like international students, I believe BC is the only province that will provide healthcare for the international students.
Oh.
So that's the reason why there's a lot of American students actually in British Columbia.
All right. Well, I can't tell you how great it was to have the opportunity to speak to the three of you. So thank you very much, Richard, Tina, Helen. It's just been absolutely spectacular.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for having us.
And for people who are watching, if you have specific questions, I know you can find all these people online. So just shoot them an email. I'm sure they would like to correspond with it. Yeah, Richard's got his QR code.
The other side, Richard. You keep on pointing
I don't know.
the wrong
there
side.
It is.
There you go.
Dance there. And again, a big thanks to Sharon for kicking this all off, and to Laura Halverson and Crystal Bisay for setting this whole event up for Tri-County and Hawaii Realtor Associations. My name is Patrick O'Neill, and from Honolulu, Hawaii, be well and aloha. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.